If you are watching this, it's probably June 16. If you get to watch it after, don't worry, you've got some serious value coming from you, because for the very first time in the podcast, I am sitting with a panel of mentors. Mentors with the SAB Foundation, an organization I proudly work with because of the sheer impact that they've had. So we're going to tell you about some of the stuff that the SAB Foundation does, some of the grants that they've given. So you can tell already it's an episode you want to listen to. But let me introduce you to my amazing mentors. Or let me have them introduce themselves. But to make it interesting, I'm curious if, because this is Youth Month and we want to make it valuable, especially to young entrepreneurs, as you introduce yourself, if you were to go back to teenage you, what advice would you give that version of yourself? Who wants to start?
Teenage, that's going way back.
That's going way back. Zakheni, you can go.
Okay, awesome. So, yeah, my name is Zakheni, and I think for me, if I look at my journey in terms of what it took to get here, I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
First and foremost, I started my first company when I was still at varsity.
Yeah.
And from that point on, I have learned, took the plunge, made a lot of mistakes, developed within the ecosystem. But more than anything, I think I've just been developing myself throughout the whole process.
You're keeping it vague. I remember something when you were telling me the story of how you started at varsity. You were using varsity internet and you were doing some stuff.
Yes. Yeah, so I was doing, I started a magazine, a student magazine, which was called Campus Com. So it was really meant to bring students together and get them talking about issues that impacted them, but not just students in a particular institution, but nationally.
Yeah.
It was also an opportunity for students to have a voice, while at the same time getting to express themselves and opportunities. So students were submitting articles, just their drawings, and we had competitions running, and that was really the purpose of it.
So it made money.
Yes, it did make money. The mistakes that I made, obviously, within that space, you knew in the industry, you don't quite understand the systems and compliance structures that you need to have. So I think at that time for me, I got really excited about starting and making money, that I really hadn't quite learned about the environment that I was operating in, which was in academia, which is very structured. And so obviously in that process, I stepped on toes that eventually ended up coming back and biting me. And so I think that's where, the importance of having mentors and having people who've actually worked the journey, who can be able to have sort of like a broader view, those people are able to see those things before they happen and spot to say, hey, watch out for this. So I didn't have that. I just went running straight in. So I had to learn it the hard way. So.
Love it. So you'll get to be that for someone today. Yeah. Eugenie.
Sure.
Hi, everybody. My name is Eugenie. I'm also known as Gogo Schumacher.
Gogo Schumacher.
Gogo Schumacher. I was driving to Nampo with two of my mentees. Satuli and Beje were sitting in the back of the car, and I overtook a big truck, and I heard, "Go, Gogo Schumacher, go." And it's stuck since then, and I love it. For me, it's a...
I didn't know that nickname, but I will publicize it. But you can go.
So I grew up in a very strict world. I did what my parents told me to do, followed their script for me, got married, had children. And then at age 45, when I got divorced, I had to find a way to earn money for myself. And that opened the door to the most amazing journey that I've had and which I am forever blessed with. I got involved in the handcraft sector, spent many years working in remote rural communities, teaching basic business skills, market-driven product development, and market access. I also opened a retail store which sold traditionally inspired but globally desired high-end handcraft. And those journeys for me were just an amazing learning space. I learned about cultures, traditions. I've experienced stuff which I don't think many people have. And I find that today that really helps me, because it's two realities that are worlds apart, but there is a bridge between the two. And I guess for me, that still exists today. Because we do live in two realities that are worlds apart. And it's becoming even more so with the AI world. And that's one that terrifies me. But I realize that if I want to stay up to date, I need to learn about it. And for me, it's a beautiful exchange because I find I have wisdom and learning, which I share and exchange for young people, keeping me up to date as they can keep somebody in terms of the world we live in from that aspect.
That's beautiful. I'm curious about one thing you said, though. There's a time that with Kathy Fetola, she did a session, told her story, said, I got divorced. Someone else gave their story, said they got divorced, and they're one of the mentors. I didn't know they told their story. I told my story. And in the story, there was divorce along the way. And someone said, let me ask, Candy, for you to be a mentor, do you need to have divorce?
Oh my God.
So you said it. You took me to that. Was the divorce because of entrepreneurship or other things?
No, it was just we were not right for one another.
Is it?
We were not right for one another. And again, it gave me my freedom. I think because I learned at a very young age that it's easier to do as I'm told and what I'm told than to do what my heart calls me to do. So I was a very compliant, in inverted commas, person. And that gave me the freedom that I think I'd been looking for all my life.
What would you advise your younger self or someone who's young and living life the way you were at the time?
Always be true to yourself. We have such a beautiful guide, inner guide. And what comes in through our ears sometimes conflicts with what our inner guide says. And go in. If it feels right, do it. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it.
Beautiful. Dineo.
Yeah. So, hi, everybody. My name is Dineo Molokoane, and I am certainly one of SAB Foundation mentors, and it's so good to be here.
We're happy to have you.
Yeah. So, if I were to go back to my younger self, I would definitely say to myself, understand the value of the process and don't rush the process. I think when I was young, I found myself wanting to look more successful on the outside bypassing the process and not really understanding that it does take a lot of groundwork, underground work, inner work, and just process for you to come out as that good edible fruit that people are going to enjoy out of you. So I also see that a lot of young people, they rush into wanting to look successful without really taking the time to work more on themselves, to just learn the lessons they need to learn in life, so that whatever it is they build, it is built to last.
All right, guys. So I want someone who has never heard of the SAB Foundation, who's going to watch this, to gain some context. So what has been your experience working at the foundation? Think of a success story, a case study that you can share so people can get to know what the foundation does and why you're proud to be here, first of all. Who wants to start? Who's got an electric success story?
I'm happy to go.
You can go.
Working on the SAB Foundation programs has, for me, been just an incredible thing. I have met so many beautiful people. It's been being a mentor is in a way quite a difficult job because you don't know the person that's coming in that you're going to start. You might well not know the field that they are involved in. I mean, I was involved with somebody and it was Satuli, my Gogo Schumacher name, that we launched a mobile abattoir with him. And again, I think the thing about mentorship is that it's an exchange.
Yeah.
And as the mentor, I don't know everything. I do things my way, in a way that instinctively works for me. And sometimes that might not be exactly what the foundation is expecting, but it's again that give and take. So they understand, understand that I know that what I do provides impact.
Yeah.
And it's fine now. They trust me.
Okay.
And I think that is the biggest thing. It's about trust.
What was the mentee doing? Mobile abattoir.
A mobile abattoir, yes.
And-
And I don't like abattoirs. I'm anti, and I said, I cannot do this. And he said, you must do it with me, please. So what we had to do was negotiate. And I had to say to him, you must realize I have a bias. And if I'm pulling you away from what you believe is right, you need to hold me accountable because I cannot block you. We need to work this together. We need to exchange and teach one another, learn from one another.
Which program was it? And how much did they get in
TP,
terms of
it was-
grant? So it's the Tolwana program,
Yes, Tolwana, TP 15.
which is one of the programs under the foundation. So it's TP 15 and they got 250
Yes, they did.
Thousand.
They did.
grant.
But what we did with that one is we partnered them with somebody that was on the Social Innovation Fund. And they were working with farmers in the Kruger National Park, in that area. But their cattle couldn't come out because of foot and mouth disease. So
Okay.
it was a match made in heaven in a way. Because the abattoir could then go up there and the meat could be processed there and didn't have to come out.
It's beautiful things in that besides the grant that they got access to other entrepreneurs who they then were able to partner with. You guys can go. I'm sure you've got others as well. Just mention the program and how much they got.
Okay.
Okay.
So I have had the privilege, number one, working with SAB Foundation feels like home. It's so warm. The values align, so I really love it. So the program that was the most fulfilling one for me has to be the SAB Foundation, People Living with Disability. So what was happening there, SAB Foundation had partnered with the Department of Labor. So people who got injured at work were now given an opportunity to start their own businesses.
Wow.
And one of the success stories that we have was Justice Malaka, all the way from Soshanguve. He wanted to start a poultry farming business in the location. This is someone who's using a wheelchair. And the time I met him when we started the mentorship journey, he was just, despondent, did not have any hope. He had a lot going on, even into drugs a little bit. But the time we finished the program, he was so full of life. He had just changed the environment at home because of the business that was running. And Justice still calls me and says, Sis Dineo.
Do you know how much he got?
Yes, he started with about 18,000, Yeah, about 18,000.
No, I mean in terms of funding from the program.
Yes.
Or they gave him 18,000 to start.
Yes, as capital to start the business.
That is cool.
Awesome. Yeah, I think so. On my side, I work with the Social Innovation Awards, which also focuses on disability as well. And so a lot of the entrepreneurs that we work with are people who are driven by purpose. It's people who identify an issue within their society and community, and they simply decided they want to solve it. So a lot of the time, they are not thinking business. They are wanting simply to make a difference and find solutions. And so when those people come, I think the energy that they bring with each other, but the energy that they bring also to the foundation is one that is amazing. And what we're finding that it also rubs off on us quite well. So we've become, it's really inspiring for us as well working with them. And so the issue, the biggest thing that we often see is that obviously because they are starting not necessarily with a particular end in mind, but just wanting to solve a problem. By the time they come into the foundation, they don't really have the business, systems in place that will allow them to be able to raise funding. So the main thing that we do is then provide the support, provide all of these resources, but at the same time, sort of work on developing a business mindset in terms of sustainability. And so I'll just make one example. So there's a young man that I worked with called Elvis Soroka. He was in Jane First. And what he had done is his sister had cerebral palsy. And so he was taking care of his sister as he was younger. And somehow he started taking on, because, when you are in a township environment, a lot of the time the kids who are, are differently abled are often where there is no real support. They're often left at home or so on. And so this young man literally turned his home into a center. He didn't get any funding, he didn't anything. He just started taking on kids. And essentially created a home with them. And then him and his mother moved out and got themselves a smaller place, and they simply just gave away their home to turn that into a center. And, when he came in, he was just running, but there wasn't really any systems of sustaining the business and all of that. And so that's the one thing that I really appreciated about the foundation, is that they didn't just tick a box and looked at, okay, this person doesn't have, the typical requirements for fundraising, but they really looked at, this person is trying to do something. They might not have all the boxes
systems
ticked,
and stuff,
but then how do we help them be able to build those, And so fast forward, we worked with that company, and we ended up creating a water business alongside the school, because they had a well in the yard, and there wasn't really any water that was being, I think it was only one shop that was selling water within the community, and it was quite far. And so we created a whole water distribution and water refill center. So they were selling bottles and ice, selling to local businesses, and local people would come in with their spark bagus and refill their water. And that ended up becoming a revenue stream that then helped sustain the school. And so what I loved about that aspect is that, people can be doing one thing, but when it comes to how you sustain your business, being able to think outside the box and being able to cross-pollinate different ideas and different spaces allows you to really start and create something quite amazing. Because, who would have thought about merging a school with a water purification and distribution center? And all of that, again, happened because of the community within the ecosystem of the SAB Foundation. So the person, for instance, who installed his, reverse osmosis and all of that was an alumni of the foundation, who actually traveled with me all the way to Jane First to see, how this is how they can essentially set up the system and continue to support and train him. So to this point, he has been able to bring in a lot of different partners, including being able to, he recently got a vehicle from the Muslim Charitable Trust. He got funding from a lot of different organizations, and now he's creating sort of like the stimulation center. And it all started from just somebody who had a passion and wanted to make something, and then they just started doing it, And so a lot of the time, I think that's usually what we just need to do, is to start. You're going to make a lot of mistakes along the way, but when you start, slowly the universe starts pulling towards you and things start to sort of come together. But you obviously have to have that open mind and that learning. So that was the main thing for me.
I love it. There's a poll that went out from the SAB Foundation on our various social media, and it was Ask a Mentor. So I will go through a lot of your questions, the questions that they popped in. And one of them is from Selina Nkona, and it has to do directly with what you were talking about just now. She says, how will I make a profit without any loss for a business selling cakes? So how do I build a cake selling business and make it profitable? And I think when you listen to a question like that, think about some of the mistakes that you see other entrepreneurs making that drive them into loss positions.
Yeah, I think, So I would say on my side, what I typically see, right, is that because we just start and we build and we are selling, we miss the numbers. And so getting to really understand what does it take to develop your product. Every single cake that you sell, how much does it actually cost you to make that cake. A lot of the time, that's where we stop. You think, okay, I made a cake, I bought flour and all of that, and I spent 100 Rand and I made 150 Rand, so I made a profit, right? But we fail to account for what it actually takes to run a business. For you to make that cake, you needed to have a kitchen, you needed electricity, you needed, somebody to actually put these things together. So a lot of the time,
The labor.
we focus on the exchange of cash, that we don't separate the difference between your gross profit, which is what you make from selling a product, and your net profit, which is what you make from running a business. and a lot of the time, there are things that we are not costing for. Because my little sister was helping me, so I'm not going to account for that labor. I was using my mom's kitchen, so I'm not going to account for that. And so what then typically happens is that you are running, but you don't actually understand how your business works. And so I think my one advice would be to say, and we have been developing models around there to say, how do we get you to really break down the unit costs of your business and also break down the unit operational costs of your business so that you understand in each and every product whether or not you're actually making a profit. Because a lot of the time, if you don't pick that up early, yes, there's an exchange of cash going on, but at the end of the month, then when you have to pay for something big or you have to take an order, suddenly you don't have the necessary cash and you're making losses. If you can start by understanding that process in the beginning, you avoid actually starting that business and selling and then realizing later that you're making a loss.
True.
And so I think for me, that's just the main thing, is to really start with the numbers. Really try and look at and understand what does it take for you to make a cake and account for every single item, and then work out how much you're going to sell it for. Because when it comes to costing and pricing, those are the main issues that we struggle with. We see people buying because obviously we're selling a cheaper product.
Yeah.
And so you're seeing revenue coming in, but you're not actually profitable at all. So understanding your costing, your pricing, and your profitability, and understanding the difference between your net profit and your gross profit is going to be the key in terms of how you plan your overall ecosystem and how you plan your operations to ensure that you then become profitable.
I think we're going to have a deeper one on that, costing and pricing, just to go deep. If you have questions around that, please pop them in the comments as well. Do you ladies have a take on what you think is driving businesses into losses that they sometimes are not aware of?
I think the first thing is, and it's, Zakheni, you mentioned it, is the fact that people want to start a business not only for themselves but to help the people around them. And I absolutely understand that. However, you first have to look after yourself. So you need to be growing yourself and your business. And once you've got that going, then you can help the people around you. Because again, it's what I call the F word, and the F word is finance. And that is the key driver. And that I think is where many people go wrong in business. And to understand about financials, to be strict with yourself in terms of expenditure, and also to work out how you are going to make money through selling goods or services, rather than waiting for somebody to come and put money in for you. So many people are going out looking for funding, but don't really have a good idea of what their business is. And a business has to make profit in order to survive. And that for me is the key of everything.
I love that, because you're introducing financial discipline. Just there are businesses or business owners that do make the revenue, and sometimes they are profitable, and some are profitable by luck, by the way. It's not like they knew how to do costing and pricing. They just charged a price that was working, not because they did the numbers, but because they lack financial discipline. They end up not seeing the fruit of that profit. So I like that you're bringing in financial discipline. Actually, I was thinking when you guys were talking that sometimes you might be making a loss, but because the loss is small and your business is small, you don't feel it. If I'm selling a bottle of juice, I almost named a brand, a bottle of juice, and I'm selling it for 10 rand and it's costing me 11 rand. If I just sell 100 of them, my loss is 100 rand. I won't feel it because I probably subsidized it off money from my kids, right? It doesn't feel like it. I just feel business is moving, customers are buying. But picture a business coming to your business and ordering 1 million of them. Now, if you are losing 1 rand from each bottle, now your loss is going to be something that you see, that you feel. And that's the classic case for small businesses where we say, growth killed me.
Yep.
I grew and I died.
Yeah.
So it's a big deal. Financial discipline, costing and pricing. Do you have a take on it, Dineo?
Yeah, sure. I totally agree with my fellow colleagues here. Financial skills is a big issue that I see a lot of young entrepreneurs lacking. And secondly, just managing the cost, right? Building better relationships with your suppliers so that you manage that element. And knowing what your break-even point is. Because I think sometimes we don't get to that point. As young entrepreneurs.
I like break even. That sounds like a very big one. You can summarize it, but because of just how big it is as well, I think we're going to need something to go deep on it. But you can try and explain it for someone who says...
So basically what a break-even point is, you have to make sure, for instance, that if you have bought 10 bottles of water, and then you are selling them for 15 rands, for you to make profit, you must make sure that let's say you spent maybe 500 rands in total. Yeah. For you to make sure that you don't lose, right, in terms of profit, you must make sure that you sell more than 15 bottles of money so that it makes you more than 500 rands. Okay. So then you will know that, okay, my break even is selling 15 bottles of water so that I don't make a loss, and I have to sell more so that I make a profit.
So basically, it tells you how hard you have to work. If you work below this level, your business is in trouble.
Yeah.
And sometimes people are not aware. I like that you introduced negotiating with suppliers as well, because sometimes we ignore that we can control costs by how we buy and who we buy from and how frequently we buy, or whether or not we're buying in bulk and stuff. So I think you are answered, Celine. Let's go to the next question. This is interesting for me. From the Western Cape, Tebiso is asking, I would like to know how to get sponsors for a detergent business. I want money.
Asina Mali.
Yeah, that's the short answer to it.
I think it's that thing about sponsorship. Sponsorship, what happens often is we make a product that we think is fantastic. And then we go out there and try and find somebody to buy it. It doesn't work that way. You need to actually know what the need is in the people that you are going to be looking at to market to and meet that need for them. And it's exactly the same with sponsorship. People don't sponsor because they've got money to give away. They sponsor because they want a return on the money they are giving you. So sponsorship is, you need to research the person that you want to get sponsorship from. Does it align? Are your customers their customers? Will your product meet their customers? How is it going to impact on them in order for them to give you money and sponsorship?
I love that. So I think it's just doing your homework in terms of what's expected from you before you apply for the funding, because a lot of the time people get rejected because they're not ready.
100%. It's what value are you bringing the sponsor?
Yeah. All right. What options do you guys have? Because there's another question as well. This one, it skipped me from. This one is from Samuel. Samuel had also asked the same thing. For my business, it's my first time in business. It's been hard. How do I get sponsorship? So I guess it's more to say what options do you know out there for young people?
Yeah. So when it comes to fundraising, right, whether it's through sponsorship or anything, one, you have to actually get started, right? So if you've got a detergent business, you need to first be able to go out there and actually engage with the customers and see what that feedback looks like. If you are starting...
I'm thinking of a naughty question I have for you.
Right.
The first time I met him, it was in a workshop, and he stood up this one time and he talked about having raised some money. And he had raised 20 million. So I'm just giving everyone context. Stood up and said, I just raised 20 million.
Yeah.
So now you can answer. Anyone listening will understand that, okay, let me see how he raised 20 million for the business.
Cool.
Your step one would be?
Yeah. So it is really that, you have to constantly be thinking win-win. Yes, I know that you want funding, but you have to think about what's in it for the funder. And so in you looking for funding, you're building a relationship, and the relationship is a two-way street. So for me, it was really understanding what product do I have and who are the likely people who can benefit from the product that I have. And so I had to do a deep dive in terms of what products are they funding, what projects are they involved in, what ecosystem do they have, and how does my product plug into their existing system, but most importantly, how does it benefit and enhance their business as well as their direction and their vision. And so and before you can ask for funding or ask for anything, those are the things that you need to ask yourself, is that if I'm going to build a relationship with this person where they have to put in money or they have to put in their time or their resources, what's in it for them? How do they benefit, and how do I add value into their ecosystem? If you can answer those questions and be able to clearly articulate, when you go out there and you build a relationship, you're no longer coming from a perspective of I want, but it's a matter of this is what I can do for you. And this is how what I've developed can be able to plug into your system and organization and enhance your ability to do 1, 2, 3, which is what I know you need. And so research, stepping outside of your own needs and really have the empathy and the understanding that the other person is also, they've got their own KPIs, they've got their own reasons for doing what they need to do. And so do your research, understand, put together a list of people who align with the work that you're doing, and then build the relationships. It's really about putting yourself out there and having the conversations and taking every opportunity to build the right reputation, the right relationships. Because then when opportunities come up, people know that they can trust you. People know that having you in their ecosystem is a benefit for them because you are a person who adds value. And that applies for fundraising. It applies for if you want to be a supplier. It applies if you are looking for somebody to invest or be your mentor. You always need to think beyond yourself and what your needs are, but really understand and try to unpack what the other person wants. And that's how you lead in relationships. And ultimately, that's what business is. It's your ability to cultivate and maintain relationships.
Yeah.
Once you learn that, there is no amount of funding you won't be able to raise. There's no amount of supplier or any relationship that you won't be able to build. Because from that point on, it's just a matter of you become a particular individual who is able to build trust and credibility based on how you put yourself forward. And in doing so, you attract the resources. And so it's that for me, I would say that is the main thing, right? You look for how you add value. And then when it comes to having a product, right? I mean, if you have got a product that you've developed, what we tend to do is you want to immediately go out and look for funding.
Yeah.
Have you actually tested the product? Right? For me to go out looking for funding, I first had to have 15,000 people on my platform because I had to show that there's a market. There are people using this platform. I had to already have signed publishers into the platform. I already had to have books and prescribed textbooks. I already had to have universities in the system for me to say, listen, because you can't take your issues and hand them over to someone else. But what you can do is say, I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, and with us together, we can move faster together. But you need to show that you are moving. Nobody wants to get into a stationary vehicle. People want to ride when they see the car is moving. So that's what you need to do. You need to make sure that the car starts moving on its own, and you do your part in terms of everything that you can, and you build a particular direction. And then as you are moving, you find the right people who will then be able to come in and help you accelerate, because that's what funding is. It's about helping you accelerate. It's not about helping you start, right? You have to show initiative. You have to show that you've done the work, you've done the research, and that you are capable of taking this further even after someone has given you the money.
Wonderful.
And that's why you need to be able to use that F word. If you can go in and show that your financials look like this, that is going to be, that's big bait.
Yep.
If you say, no, I don't know, then that's a no.
Exactly.
It's a no.
And also just to add on the financials as well, right? I mean, a lot of time we are not compliant when it comes to financials. Meanwhile, any funder that's going to fund you is going to want to see your 3-year financial statements. So are you keeping the records of how you're managing money? Because for me to work with anyone, I need to see how much have they made and how they spent it. Have they been prudent in their and disciplined in their spending? And do they have a track record as well? And so it becomes really crucial for you not to only to really focus on your financials and focus on your compliance and focus on your systems and make sure that the systems that you have and develop are credible enough for somebody to trust that when they plug in their money, your systems are going to be sufficient to protect that money.
So I think just to add on that, more than it is about being investment ready, it's about being investment worthy.
Investment ready, investment worthy. Hey, Dineo, I'll ask you to explain this, but I'll give you context because there's two more questions. One is from Tabiso Alfred, and the other is from Sfiso. Sfiso says, it's about funding as well. I've been applying. It's been 3 years being rejected. So I'm not sure if they're applying SAB Foundation or applying elsewhere. But the question is still about funding. But there's now that added element of I've tried and I've been rejected for 3 years because you said you need to be funding ready and funding worthy. And the next one as well is about funding from Tabiso. Yeah, well, it's still the same. You can explain those two.
So I think the first question that I would have for Tabiso or whoever asked the question is, have you ever found out why you've been rejected? Because I think that's important. I mean, if you were looking for funding from a certain funder, it's important for you to go back and say, but I've been rejected. What are the reasons for that? And I also think that it's also important for Tabiso to make sure that they go for the funder who aligns with what their funding requirements are, because I find that a lot of times entrepreneurs just look for funding everywhere without even understanding, like Zakheni was saying earlier on, to say you have to understand what is their vision, what are their goals, what kind of businesses are they focusing on or are they funding, what's the criteria that's being used there. So sometimes, I mean, they just not even meeting the criteria and you are going to be rejected in that case. So it's those little things, financial skills, your business model. Yeah, so I will leave it at that.
That's a cool one, especially when you say some don't realize that they're applying to the wrong funder for their business. If you look at some of the applications, I've seen many people that come, especially to the SAB Foundation. I work with others as well, and they say, I am so happy that I'm in the room because I've been trying to get here. This was my 3rd year applying and I only got accepted now. I've heard someone who said, I've applied 4 years running. This is the first time. So it's also to say, don't give up if it's really something that you want. But in looking at the applications as well, I've seen something else because sometimes the application forms are long. They are long and tedious. People get tired to answer the questions and they just answer the questions haphazardly and give short version answers.
Or use AI generated answers.
Or use AI and forget that AI can give the same answer to the next guy who uses AI as well. But what that ends up causing is 3,000 people are going to apply. So, and you're going to be one out of 3,000. And when I read your application, or when someone who's evaluating reads your application, they've read 10 applications before yours. They're going to read 100 applications after yours. Is yours unforgettable? Because they don't take the time to sit and ask, there's 1,000 or there's 3,000 people applying. I want mine to stand out. So I want to take my application seriously.
And a lot of time also, there's usually opportunities to ask questions. Then there are briefing sessions, and usually in these applications, they would have an email or a contact number that people can reach out to get more clarity. And people hardly take on that opportunity. And what you'll find a lot of the time is that if you're unsure, just reach out. While you're applying and there's some information that you're not clear about, reach out and ask.
Yeah.
Do I meet the criteria? And then get that guidance from the people who actually understand what is required. Because if you then are just going to be playing your law of average, hoping something is going to stick, you are going to spend a lot of your effort and time and energy. And then the more you do that, the more despondent and disappointed you get. And it does have an impact as well in your mental health. And so just be strategic and, really take the time to understand the programs that you're applying for and reach out.
I think for me, there are two people that have stuck with me for a long time. Years ago, to promote tourism, government were giving cars, tour vehicles, for people to actually take tours, but they had to have money to start. This lady was desperate to get one of those, but she didn't have the money. She thought about it. What she did was she collected old clothing, took the old clothing back home, sold the clothing there until she had enough money to put the deposit down. So again, it's that thing about don't wait for somebody to do it for you. Start doing it yourself. There was another one, a dancer that I worked with, and he was desperate to study. He didn't have funds to study. So what he did was he found a part-time job cleaning to pay for his studies. He then graduated from his own investment, his own money, did a lot of touring with it, and he's now got a dancing school. So again, don't wait for somebody to come. Be creative about how you can start your journey on your own.
Wonderful. All right, so there's two questions here. Kirapetzi, I'll ask maybe one of you to respond to this one. Can I please advertise Black Label? I guess they had SAB Foundation and thought, you know what, maybe I can be a distributor or something. All right, quick break. The SAB Foundation is giving away 2 vlogging kits to 2 lucky winners who are watching this episode. So if you want to stand a chance to win, hop over to the SAB Foundation Facebook page and answer this question in the comments. What is Eugenie Drakes' nickname? What is Eugenie Drakes' nickname? All the best to you. Back to the episode.
A lot of the time when I started out, when I wanted to work with a company, so for instance, I wanted to onboard Pearson as one of our publishers because we were distributing ebooks. And it was quite hard to get to the right people.
Okay.
But I saw that they had a supplier development program. And there was the same thing with Sanlam. I wanted to work with Sanlam. I didn't quite know how to get in. I couldn't get access to the right people. I had tried and pushed for years. But then I realized that actually, using these supplier development programs can be a way for you to get into the ecosystem. Because once you're in the supplier development program, then you're able to, even if it's not that particular department, but it's usually much easier to find someone internal to connect you with someone else internal who can then have that conversation with you. But again, it means that person who has to connect you has to trust you, has to build rapport with you, has to build a relationship with you. So how you show up within those spaces and with those people is going to be the factor that determines how you are then able to progress in terms of the conversations and ultimately getting the contract that you're looking for. And so within these organizations, I think there are relationships that you need to cultivate, but you need to find a way to get noticed and get into the ecosystem. And there's a lot of ways in which you can do that. If you are struggling to get to management, and I think that's the problem. We think we have to go high up. You don't have to. With every program that I've applied for, first thing I've looked at is who's their alumni? Do I know anyone who's in their alumni? And you can use LinkedIn for that. You find anyone associated that's within your circle, and that person becomes your entry point. Because if that person then does the introduction, it's already coming from a soft landing. So it allows, or that person invites you to one of the events and you become a +1. And once you are there, then you have the conversation. You have to be tactful in terms of relationship, especially in social settings. You can't bombard people with I want. But it's important sometimes to come in and just be known. This is what I do. This is what I'm passionate about. It's been a pleasure to meet you. We should talk sometime. You know, and those are the things that then open up those corridors that allow that, you know, that.
I like that because I do introduce people sometimes even to the DTI, the Innovation Fund, and what they get there through the introduction. It's not like when you get introduced to someone who works there, you're guaranteed funding. It doesn't work like that. You still have to be worthy. You still have to be ready. But that introduction gives them time in a relaxed atmosphere to ask questions. So this is what I do. What are the programs that are available? Which one is the best for me to apply for? You get to ask those questions.
Yes.
Instead of just guessing and shooting for the wrong one. And then you get rejected 5 years in a row. You ladies want to add?
Yes, you know, I think people underestimate the power of joining programs like Zakhele says. You know, I have a friend of mine who was in the PPE industry, and she wanted to crack the corporate market, you know. And one of the things she did, she just became part of the organization's supplier database and stuff and joined the program. And that's how she cracked that market. Even for me personally, as a mentor and as a business person, I've had a lot of opportunities through joining programs first and then building relationships and then getting my way up there, you know, in that way.
So the main tip there is get into the databases of the organizations that you want. Sometimes it can be through supplier enterprise development programs, but sometimes on their website, they've got vendor registration. Get the form. It will tell you what you need and what you need to qualify, and just get into as many databases as you want. You want
I
to
think
add?
for me, it's also that thing about not I want. How am I going to get? So you need to be driven by a need to get your foot in the door. And that means research, asking the right questions, etc. You need to do the work. It's not going to come to you.
Wonderful. There's another one. This one is more techy though. Sipesihle says, I'm building an e-commerce business. It's been 2 years, but now I'm stuck. How do I grow this e-commerce thing?
Yeah. Sometimes we look for the sexy things, and there's usually a buzzword of what's hot in the streets, and a lot of time we fall into that trap of looking at what is trending and what is popular, and then going with that. There's a lot of power in an e-commerce business, right? But what we need to separate and understand is that an e-commerce is simply a platform. What exactly are you selling, right? What products are you creating? If you are simply running a platform where people can buy and sell, there needs to be trust, there needs to be convenience, there needs to be systems in place that allow for people to use your distribution. If you are selling the products yourself, before you go and create your own online store, you need to first prove that people actually want your product. And sometimes what it takes is starting small. You know, before you go and spend a lot of money building a platform, because you have to build, you have to maintain it, there are costs associated to that. Try and just do, a web app. Start there, something that doesn't cost you too much, or use a Facebook page and build your following and then sort of build up from there. Before building an app, start with an Excel spreadsheet. Use that and develop that at low cost, and then prove and validate that that is something that the market actually wants. Get customers using that very, cheap, beta version
of it, yeah.
Before you go and then invest and spend a lot of money into developing a product. Because then you spend a lot of money, now you're incurring the cost, but you haven't validated the product, you haven't validated the market. And so I would say that's the main thing. But again, if you already have an online store, you really need to think about, what is it that I am selling? Is it my product that I'm developing? Because if that's the case, then you need to focus on communicating value about your actual product. But if it's the environment itself that you are selling, or a distribution channel, then you also, again, need to position yourself differently in a way that people will be comfortable to use your platform to distribute their product. So you need to understand your value chain. You need to understand your ecosystem. And then once you have all these things in place, I think the market will tell you if you're in the right track. I think this whole thing is about, a lot of time we just want to run. You need to, it's like dancing. You got to take 2 steps forward and then wait. The market also has to take 1 step for you to know that you're onto something. But because you're so passionate and believe in a particular concept, you can't just keep running on your own. It has to be validated by the market. Yeah.
Do you guys have a take on it? Someone who's stuck.
I think for me, there are so many resources out there. There is for small business and to learn about small business. I still will go and watch a podcast on, or go to a thing to learn. You must never stop learning, number one. And number two, what it is it's about understanding people. So who are your people and what do they need? Maybe you're on the wrong program. If you're looking for an older group of customers, you're not going to find them on Instagram. So again, it's where do you find them? Who do you talk to them? And what are other organizations doing? What are other similar organizations doing? And how are they doing it? Because in a way, that helps you follow a trend, because things are changing and will be changing fast with what's happening with AI.
Yeah, that's a nice one, because you can actually learn a lot from your competitors, especially if you check the website of the best guys in the industry, because 99.9999% your business is not new. There are people that are doing what you want to do already. Do you have a take on it, Dineo?
Yeah, I'm reminded of one of the local sneaker brands where the guy started selling in the boot, and then he went the e-commerce way, and then he went back to the stores. So I think probably that's a model he must look into and study to see how it worked for him.
All right, there's a question from a content creator who says, I focus on the spiritual things and I also focus on beauty. So they have two sort of channels. One on TikTok, one on YouTube. Monica on YouTube, focusing on the spiritual side, and there's the beauty brand. And she's asking, does merging these two kill the power of the brand, or I should keep them separate? One is on spirituality, one is on beauty. Am I at an advantage if I merge them into one brand?
Which is drawing more, the beauty brand or the spirit brand? And if you can if you've got a good uptake on the spirit, you can then bring the makeup in a context that is spiritual, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So rather how it enhances what it means. If you well made up, you feel good, and if you feel good, you interact with the world differently.
It excites you that much.
It does. So I think it could be, but it's how. It's the how, and where does she have the most traction, and what is going to bring in the most revenue.
Would you blend beauty and spirituality?
I would. I've seen it happen. When I used to work on TV, the lady who was styling me and dressing me, she had a gift of healing, and she was just, focusing on styling me. So I loved how she healed me, parts of my soul, through how she dressed me and styled me. So I think it's possible. So it depends on where the need is, and what she wants to do with this thing, because I don't have context in terms of that.
So I guess it's possible. It's more in the execution.
100%.
I would also say it's about really understanding your customers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's where, the best entrepreneurs are the people who have high empathy. Because that comes into you stepping outside of yourself and really understanding the people that you're selling to. So if you have got a beauty product, I'm sure you have taken the time to truly understand what makes those people tick, how they think, what drives them. And I'm sure you have channels to be able to have conversations with those people. And so possibly also what it's going to take is you getting to know them, but also having the conversations and doing the research. It can be a standard, surveys, or it could actually be bringing in people and having conversations saying, hey, you guys, this is the direction we're thinking about going into, and how would you feel about it? How does it make you feel? And so having that open channel where, again, you're not just doing things because it feels right for you. Ultimately, you are there to serve your market. And so if you already have a market in both of these different products, then you need to really take more time to understand how would blending these two impact them, and how would they engage with this content if it's now a blend of beauty and and spirituality. There will be some that will like it. There will be others that will not. But I think it'll take you just having the conversation and getting a better relationship and understanding of your market for you to be able to decide which way you want to go about it.
I like that. So basically, ask as many of your customers as you can. Ask them
100%.
questions. Get some feedback so that it's not an idea existing just within you, because you can lie to yourself very easily. All right, so we're wrapping up. I want your advice for young people, young entrepreneurs, but there's a question that we didn't quite fully answer. They were asking about funding options for young people. I'll name a few that I know, and you're welcome to add. So there's the NYDA, if you're in South Africa, because I've noticed there's other countries that watch the podcast. National Youth Development Agency. So check their website. For every young entrepreneur before you are 35, please make sure you use that opportunity. That is sort of the softest lending you're ever going to get when it comes to the world of funding for youth entrepreneurs, because I've seen that when they register their businesses and go there, they get about 15,000 to just test their ideas and stuff. They train you for a week first, and then beyond that, you can get 50,000. I think it goes up to 200,000 or 250,000. You can keep coming back as long as you prove that your business works. So that would be the first one. Enterprise development programs, there are so many. Even if I tried to name them, there is probably 1,000 that even I don't know about. So there are organizations that you might want to work with. Check if they've got an enterprise development program or they've got a foundation. That's another place to go and apply for. But the best place to start when it comes to funding is your customers and your suppliers. Negotiating with your suppliers, getting credit lines with your suppliers, because that frees some cash flow tightness. And when you get deposits and laybys from customers, that is some funding from operations. So I'll leave it at that. Do you have anything you want to add?
I think what I'd add to that is you need to build a network of other entrepreneurs. A lot of the opportunities you're going to get are going to come from other entrepreneurs. There's no way, no matter how informed you are going to be able to plug in and understand and see and know the opportunities that come in. But if you put yourself in spaces where entrepreneurs are and you build relationships, you will find that there are WhatsApp groups, there are different channels in which people share information. So you need to be able to plug into that. Secondly, you need to leverage where you are, right? I mean, there are opportunities that are particularly targeted at specific locations or particular contexts. If you are a student, for instance, there are, is Inectus, there's DUT InnoBiz and different programs within universities that allow you to tap into an ecosystem of support. There are competitions like EDHE, that allow for entrepreneurs who are students to come into these spaces. If you're a researcher and you want to get into business, there's TIA, there's all these different opportunities. So I think understand the space and the ecosystem that you're in, and then leverage that as much as possible. And then also, a lot of the time, the mistake that entrepreneurs make is they underestimate the impact of respecting your network. And your network doesn't have to be somebody who gives you money. It's the entrepreneur that you are with in a particular program. It's the mentor that you get for 1 year that you don't bother to show up for meetings for. You don't submit that documentation. And then as soon as that year mandatory period is over, you just disappear, right? You have missed an opportunity there, because that person who is within either the university ecosystem or is assigned to be a mentor is plugged into the ecosystem. And so how opportunities work is that when you build relationships, you build, then you maintain them. So a lot of the time we have this revolving door where people come and go. And because we are not investing in actually maintaining relationships. And so what happens is that there are opportunities that come, but because you're no longer within that person's, periphery, that person then forgets that, there's this person who could have actually benefited from this opportunity.
Yeah.
And so I think understanding that when you build relationships for the long haul, respect those relationships and understand that something at some point is going to come out of these relationships. We go in building relationships very selfishly, knowing exactly what we want out of them. And when we feel like there's nothing we're going to get out of them, then we
Disconnect.
we disconnect. Whereas I think surrounding yourself with great people is always going to be beneficial, even if you don't know how you're going to work with them. Something somewhere will connect. And so I think that is the thing that ultimately allows you to build a network that is not looking up, but just looking around you. And when you have people around you that know you, that trust you, those are the people that push you up. Instead of you constantly trying to raise money somewhere, because those people are at a level where you potentially don't have access to, but you do have access to people here.
Yeah.
So how do you leverage this? How do you maintain those relationships? And what happens is, as those people move up within different organizations, as those people change and move from one organization to another, certain opportunities open up. You can meet someone who's working at SAB now, and then 2 years later they are at TIA and they are controlling a fund. But you didn't pay much attention to that relationship. And now you can't then unplug if you did not take that relationship seriously.
Yeah.
And so respecting the relationships, regardless of whether you think you're going to get something out of it, is key. And then leveraging every relationship around you. It can even be your lecturer who understands business, because that lecturer might have been a judge somewhere or might have met someone from EDHE and whatever, but you need to maintain those relationships and constantly put yourself forward and stay within the ecosystem so that when opportunities come up, they can always remember that, oh, there's this person that, I think is going to be, a good candidate for this. And also for them, you have to remember that they are putting their neck on the line by recommending you every single time. Nobody is going to do that unless you can show and you have proven that you take opportunities seriously. And so when you get an opportunity to build relationships, get a mentor, get a lecturer who's interested in business, nurture those relationships and respect them and spend the time and the energy to cultivate them. Even if you don't see that immediate gain, but just having those people in the ecosystem is going to be crucial moving you forward.
Beautiful. Closing remarks, ladies, to young people out there.
I think for me, I would like to bring it back to the person, because that's where it starts. So it's to be clear on your vision, to be clear on your values, to believe in yourself, and to always watch whether your vision is viable. Because if it's not viable, it isn't going to be there. But don't get overwhelmed. Just keep going. Believe in yourself. Keep going. And you're not going to try not to live in the world of Instagram, because that's not the real world. Keep grounded and work with people in the ecosystem that you want to get into.
Wonderful. Dineo?
Yeah, for me, I think what's important as a takeaway is for young people to know who they are. You can easily get swallowed into everything that is happening. So knowing who you are at the core of your being is very important, and also valuing the process, like I said earlier on. Just value the process. Don't rush things, it's life, Take time to work on yourself, to learn what you need to learn. I'm tempted to say take it easy, but I don't mean it literally. But relax. It's okay. It's all right. You'll get there.
You'll get there. It sort of contradicts it doesn't, but
it's a paradox of some sort.
Yeah, because what I wanted to say my advice to young people is you are not always going to be young.
And that's true, right?
I am still young.
Go.
You are young, Coco Shimuka.
I am still young. 74, I'm still learning.
Yes.
I'm still studying, and life is great.
True.
Yeah.
I look at my life sometimes, and there's like 10 years that I can't account for somewhere. I must have lost. What was I doing during those years? I can't account for that. And I always then talk to young people to say, that can happen. That can be you one day. I don't want you to repeat my mistakes.
Yeah.
So understand that you won't always be young. Just be goal-oriented, be a lot more focused, focus on learning some skills. If you look at what's happening now, AI is coming in, the world is evolving, a lot of jobs are getting redundant. So it's time to really understand what skills do I need that are going to be relevant in 5 years, that are still going to be relevant in 20 years, because some skills won't be relevant. You can spend the next 5 years learning something that will be replaced by some AI agent somewhere. It's going to be painful to try and start over. So that's where I'm coming from.
And
Thank you. Yeah.
and I think just to add on that, I think as I said earlier, right, when you start this process of creation, you're thinking you're building a business, but what you're building is yourself. Businesses, concepts, ideas, innovations will come and go. They will change. This might be your first business. It will end up completely different, or it might even be a completely different business that you go into in the future. But I think understanding that as you work through this journey, you are learning yourself and you're developing yourself is going to be key into understanding that everything that you're going to do, it has to not only focus on the business, but also yourself. And that's where taking care of yourself and prioritizing your mental health and ensuring that you are building yourself to last
Yes.
is key. Burnout is real. Depression is real. Frustration is real. And there are spaces that you're going to go into that are going to be really hard. And sometimes it's okay to step back and say, let me take care of me. Let me regroup. Let me focus on my mental health. And throughout the process as you build, you need to understand that, yes, businesses will come and go, but you need to still be here. And so your mental health, your emotional well-being is key in being able to sustain yourself through this very difficult and exciting and emotionally charged process of developing. So for me, I would say that's the one thing that you need to really, as you build, pay special attention to make sure that you don't build yourself to break.
Yeah. It's a question of balance.
Don't build yourself to break.
Yeah.
Love it. I know this has been valuable to you, so I'll do you one favor. Pop in any question that you have, or if you sent a question and you feel it was not addressed, pop it in the description of this video. We're going to do this again. We're going to have a lot of episodes where we respond to your questions. So if you've got more questions, still ask in the description of the video, and we're going to make sure you're covered. Thank you. And thank you to the SAB Foundation, by the way.
Hey.